So how do we partner? How do we partner with some of these other communities? How do we do that? How do we, lock arms with these communities and start getting them to understand that, okay, you don't like us because we eat meat. Okay, we get it, that's fine. We actually feel the same way you do about, animal husbandry, the whole same. We feel the same way you do about factory farming. We want to get rid of it just like you do. But we have to partner together and become a mass, because unless we do, we have no voice. So we need to become, like Mark said, there are, what was the number? That not eating the way we eat?
330 million in the
330 million. So there's 330 million that we have to, we have to outnumber. So unless we all partner together, we're not going to do that. So how do we do that?
Oh, I just wanted to add onto the cost and the healthcare part is just the undeniable sustainability piece to all of it. So like you were just going down what I was going to say, but basically that us and vegans and Weston A. Pricers and everybody is against CAFO meat, right? Like we all agree that stuff sucks. And so if we offer alternatives and talk about how this is the sustainable diet, I think the buy-in could be a lot better, because even, when I do a blog post and I talk about, how we care for the animals and give them a good life and everything, that's what the vegans are looking for, too. And so it's a lot harder for them to argue against how bad it is for us to eat meat if we're doing it in a responsible, sustainable way.
It's interesting to me, and maybe this is my own confirmation bias on hundreds of thousands of user experiences, but the real irony here is that we sort of know that if everybody in this country ate the way that we tend to eat in this room, that we would lop $1 trillion off the annual health care budget in the first year alone. We have technology through the likes of guys like Alan Savory. If you fly across this country and you look out the window and you see hundreds of millions of acres of unused land that could be returned to farmland, could be grazed, could be used to grow animals that we could eat, that would be humanely grown. So this the whole argument about the unsustainability of a paleo or the elitist nature of a paleo diet being expensive and unattainable, and how are you going to feed the rest of the world? We sort of know that all of this technology exists. So the real frustrating thing to me is how do we get that message out? And that's, the one-on-one, the grassroots thing, that's going to work. And that's kind of the cool part about self-empowerment is I got this little secret and I changed my life and I changed my family's life. But the reality is, if we're going to be facing huge budgets, city budgets and national budgets that all kind of point back to an inappropriate way of eating and managing these resources, then we do have to do something about it. And look, I don't think this panel is going to answer that question today. So we have our ideas and we have our dreams. But the reality is there's a real disconnect between what we know would work and what the current environment is headed toward, either willingly or in ignorance by the majority of people. So the big question in my mind is how do we enlighten the world that this is sustainable, it's fun, it tastes good, you're going to get healthy, and all the things that we want. Yeah.
I think Mark hit the nail on the head, and it's a communication problem. And I think without getting too esoteric, sometimes there's communicating or arguing about means how to do something versus communicating about the end, the goal we're after. And for example, sustainable and respectable treatment of animals. The paleo community is for that, as vehemently as the vegetarian community is. If the message is perceived as the paleo community represents humane and respecting animals, that's a end goal, like that's the thing at the end. Not eating animals is one way to achieve that. Eating animals that are treated properly is another way to achieve that. I think often people argue about means when they agree on the ends. And if we could get people to pay attention more to the ends that we represent rather than the means which with which we personally achieve them, I think there's potential for unification.